It's all going down on February 12th. Mostly.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all very much, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss is here. Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies will be here because Damon Williams, he did not say the right thing recently. And Penn State's schedule. I got a bold take that really isn't that bold on Penn State. This episode brought to you by our friends at Mazda. They put that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. And Stephen Willis, there is more to come on the Trinidad Chambliss front. His NCAA waiver denied. I don't know if you saw my take on it yesterday, but the statement released by Ole Miss Athletics had the Charles Barkley post-game translator app function of, screw you, we're doing this anyway, you suck, you're a bleep. Like that's how it kind of came off to me. Is that the mood in Ole Miss right now of, you know what, NCAA, you guys are the worst.
Ole Miss has a history of kind of being the NCAA's whipping boy in their selective enforcement. Like what other schools just get a slap on the wrist for, Ole Miss gets like a 2-year bowl ban for. So the fan base is kind of rallying behind Trinidad with, hey, we're going to get our pound of flesh NCAA. And then the Trinidad stuff with him being potentially the best quarterback in college football and a Heisman favorite and all that, that's just bonus. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you, Spencer. I've seen about 3 episodes of Law and Order. I'm pretty ready for what's going to come.
Yeah, my decision to not go to law school I've never regretted it until now. So in as plain spoken English for the rest of us non-legal experts such as yourself, as I imagine you have become, Stephen, explain to us the nature of what is going to happen on February 12th.
Well, February 12th will be a temporary injunction hearing that would allow Trinidad Chambliss to be eligible, essentially. And they also are trying to fight for a permanent injunction so that their NCAA cannot retroactively enforce anything if they happen to win the case as well. The important thing for everybody to realize, this isn't the same eligibility type case that the basketball player at Alabama or Joey Aguiar is going through right now. This is not like, hey, playing at this level doesn't count. That's not what's going on at all. Trinidad Chambliss is just applying for a medical redshirt for a 6th year of eligibility, something that has been done in the NCAA for the last 50 years. As the statement read, Ole Miss expected this to be handled with a rubber stamp like everything else. And for some reason, and I have a theory about why, this got drug out, and this became the line in the sand. My theory, Spencer, the NCAA wants to lose the Joey Aguiar thing. They want to lose the Alabama thing. They want to lose the Trinidad Chambliss thing and have 3 major losses on eligibility so they can go to Congress and say, hey, we need help. This is untenable. We are ungovernable if this goes on. And Trinidad Chambliss being the most high-profile case could get politicians' attention enough to where they actually do something about it.
Okay, I'm processing right now. It's in the brain. It's making its way down to I mean, the brain is technically the only place it matters. But I think first glance reaction for me, it's tinfoil hat conspiracy. But then you think about it for a moment. I don't think that's insane. Because this has been discussed that the courts rule against the NCAA consistently because they don't have an antitrust exemption. And so there are a lot of different legal minutia. I'm not going to pretend to know them all, but basically they rule that a lot of the things that folks want to do to restrict players' movement or ability to make money is anti-competitive. And you can't do that if you don't have an antitrust exemption. Do you think it could get there? Like from what you followed this even closer than I have. Do you think it could actually get there? Because I understand people's opposition to wanting to have the government, be involved in college sports in a major way. But I don't know who else, if the NCAA is toothless, is going to have any enforcement power.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing because I think the NCAA, they desperately need Congress to act. I do not think Congress is going to act because they have other stuff on their plate at the moment. So it's going to take time and it'll be out of the news cycle well before then. But it's like I said on a post on social media earlier today, college sports are always going to be around. The NCAA is not. And we might be at the point where the death throes of the NCAA is actually happening before our eyes. And we just have to figure out what the next step's going to be.
Is February 12th the day where we find out whether Trinidad Chambliss is Ole Miss's quarterback in 2026?
I think February 12th is the day where a preliminary injunction gets passed. And if that happens, it's just like the Joey Aguiar thing with the temporary restraining order. The difference in that is it's the preliminary injunction lasts all the way until the trial starts. So if the trial starts after the season, that's all that would be needed. So if he gets that preliminary injunction, likely that is the case.
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me the injunction could be granted that puts it in a holding pattern until the trial date, which could push after the season, and they could rule after the season you are not eligible to play after he's completed playing?
Mm-hmm. That's what we're dealing with. That's not likely. That's the reason they're trying to get a permanent injunction as well, by the way. That's part of it. They're trying to get a preliminary and a permanent. I don't think they're going to rule on February 12th on the permanent.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the drama will just continue. But I'm just thinking about the hilarious possibilities here where he goes through the entire season. It's ruled that he wasn't eligible. And then what? Does Ole Miss forfeit the games? What would happen at that point?
If it wasn't for the blanket waiver with Diego Pavia last year, it would have been the same situation. He played the whole season under a temporary injunction. It would have looked exactly the same. The NCAA just put a blanket waiver after that got ruled. So that allowed all the other floodgates to open up. And I do not think the NCAA is going to do that again because of what happened a year ago. The weird thing for them is this being the case that they drew a line in the sand over. Because it literally, if Trinidad Chambliss was still at Ferris State, it would have been a rubber stamp 6th year. And in 2024, when Ferris State was playing in the national championship, everybody can go on YouTube and watch that game against Valdosta State in the 4th quarter. They're talking about the medical redshirt during that broadcast before he transferred to Ole Miss. The fact that this is a D2 to D1 and having different standards of record keeping and bureaucracy is what makes this ridiculous. And whenever it originally got declined, they said, hey, Ferris State's not helping, and all that came out. That wasn't true. The fact of the matter is, after it came out, they got 91 pages of medical records sent to the NCAA, and no weight was put on the doctor's opinion of what's going on. It's just people looking at it and disregarding and moving on to whatever goal that they have. That is the reason this is at the stage it's in. It is absolutely nuts. I do want to say it's not a Diego Pavia situation, but it's nuts.
How is this the world? Last thing for you, Steven. What is Deuce Knight thinking right now?
Deuce Knight, little known fact, he knows the situation. He knows the score. He is preparing as if he is going to play until it's official. He's throwing, he's doing all the stuff that quarterbacks are doing, but he's expecting that Trinidad Chambliss will take the first snap in 2026 for Ole Miss. Everybody in Oxford is operating like Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the quarterback. And Deuce Knight is no different. He's going to learn under Trinidad is the plan, how he plays the game quarterback-wise, and he is going to try and put those elite athletic gifts that he has to work for Ole Miss in 2027. That is the plan. Now, it could always go sideways, I guess, but that is the plan.
All right, Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss. Same time next week?
Yeah, exactly.
Same time next week. In the industry, they'd call that an advanced tease of what is to come content-wise. So prepare yourselves for that. In the short term, though, prepare yourselves for more football-adjacent talk because Damon Williams is not doing this right. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday. One last kickoff. Go Hawks. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. So, whether you're backing the favorite, which I hope that's where your head is at, I am Go Hawks all the way, or riding with the underdog. Boo! 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 I don't care who Zach Blackerby roots for. Boo! Boo! Go Hawks. This is the last chance to bet on football this season. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the football season is done. FanDuel isn't, but the football season is. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This episode also brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. You want to know something? TurboTax is here to help you not have taxes take over your life. Why? Because it doesn't have to. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. They're trying to make it as easy as they can for you, which is what you want. Taxes are complicated, hard, frustrating, knowing all of the above, not with TurboTax. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Check them out at TurboTax.com/local. We hear the word agent tossed around a lot these days in college football, and there are such agents who work in the PR space. That's public relations. Damon Williams should invest in one of those guys. Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies is here to discuss. Roman, for those who haven't seen the press conference, I'll provide a link in the description below for those who want to easily check it out. But understandably, he was asked about, signing with Washington, announcing he's coming back, announcing he's leaving, getting sued, then coming back to Washington. He's handling this poorly, right?
It's not great. Like that's the biggest thing with this is Damon has always been a very by the book media trained. Like I'm not going to give you a whole lot. I don't think that is the best way to go about this situation personally. I also think that this is a very, I don't want to say odd situation because it's so far beyond that, but this is something where like, I feel that there is already a fracture in terms of his relationship with the fan base. And I truly don't know what is going to make it better at this point in time. I don't think the answers that he gave were tremendous by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also just kind of a little confused by this whole situation in terms of how it's going to be approached moving forward, because this question isn't going to go away.
No. And that's what I wonder is we're in early February. This is a question. When does spring practice officially start for the Huskies?
End of March, somewhere around
end of March. There are going to be press conferences after those, or media scrums, if you want to call them, for Jedd Fisch. He's going to be asked about how's he settling in? How are the guys responding to him? And then when the spring game happens, DeMond is going to have to step up to a microphone after practice sometimes. He might it's not going away. And I think the biggest misstep so far has been the attitude or messaging towards the fans, because the messaging off the top was, I want to be somewhere else. Oh, I'm going to get sued and I would lose. Well, I'm going to be here then. That's not great. That's not great from the messaging standpoint. And then the response to that was, again, an equivalent of a coach speak answer in this press conference when he was asked, hey, can you speak from the heart about what it means to be here at Washington? And look, you and I are more comfortable public speaking than, 99% of this country, because it's one of the top listed fears consistently when you look at public opinion polls. I get that talking is hard. I just think if I were a Washington fan and I were watching my quarterback who just put me through this whole ordeal, if I watched him step up to the microphone and say something that is flat, emotionless, and just trying to give any answer to the question, I wouldn't feel very good about that.
No, I think that's completely fair. And that's such a big part of this too, where it's going to continue to be uncomfortable, where I don't think we're ever going to get an answer, right? Like one of the questions I was asked in the press conference was, hey, was it LSU that tried to take you away? And
no comment.
Obviously he's not going to comment on that, right? Like we're not going to start some kind of issue around all of college football with whatever that answer is going to be. And like, even when Jedd Fisch talked about this the first time he spoke, or at least in a press conference situation, he also did a radio interview about it in the middle of January, because he's talked about being blindsided by all this. I truly don't know what else can be said at this point, especially from like a coaching staff's perspective of like, hey, yeah, because there's going to be a point where you're going to keep talking about it. And if you, I don't want to say get too honest with it, but if you do divulge a little bit too much, maybe that sows divide in your locker room. Maybe that just causes a rift in some way that is extremely, more so, let's say, detrimental to the team than what this situation already like certainly caused in some way, shape, or form. And I think that as you continue to just like move forward, I don't think the ball is any longer in the court of Jedd Fisch and the University of Washington. It is in the court of DeMond Williams and his agent and the people close to him to try to find a way to continue to make this right.
I'm with you. The question will keep coming up, and he'll probably try to keep giving non-answers, but I don't know that that's the right thing. You know, the most, I think, honest he got in that answer is when he said, I'm 19 years old, I got good advice, I got bad advice. But again, the presentation and delivery of it matters.
Sure.
Or else I think to Washington fans, it just comes off as another pre-prepared statement that doesn't have any feeling behind it. I just haven't seen any indication since all this happened that he feels he genuinely made a mistake. He gives off the vibe to me as a guy who did want to leave and is being forced into this position. And I don't think that's a great dynamic for fans to have to root for.
I do think that's fair. And I'm not trying to disagree with your point. I just want to add that demeanor and everything that the way that he spoke in that entire interview has been the exact same since he got to Washington. After going for 400, 100 against Rutgers, same demeanor. after struggling against.
But that's the problem. Is this
this
is an emotional situation, and he's bringing a business mentality to it.
No, I agree, and that's where I'm going with this. It's the demeanor has not changed in any way, shape, or form, and that in and of itself is going to cause a bigger issue with all of this as you continue to move forward. Because, as you said, it is a bit of a disservice to the fans because there are going to be several more opportunities to continue to speak about this from the heart and say, yeah, I know I made a mistake. This was a problem. This is what I've done maybe behind the scenes to try to make it right. This is what I've done publicly to try to make it right, because the message that Jedd Fisch continued to push when he talked about this earlier was, well, he was only really away from the team for 72 hours. So, and it's one of those things where, it wasn't
as
necessarily
if that matters.
Super hard. That's an interesting part of all this, right?
Would it be different if it was only 48 hours or 52 hours? What's the line of demarcation on that? Okay.
It's just one of those things where, it's not like he was away for several weeks and the team was moving on without him and exploring so many other options at quarterback or whatever that message might be. It's all so confusing from this. And I think that this can just continue to be handled so much better as this continues to go on, because again, we keep coming back to the same point of the question is going to continue to be asked. And I think that there also needs to be some acknowledgement of the timing of all this. And it's been said before that, it was just bad timing to take place during the celebration of life for Mia Hammett, the women's soccer player who passed away last season during a battle with kidney cancer. And that is part that still wasn't necessarily publicly addressed by Demond. I know Jedd Fisch has talked about, hey, yeah, we understand this, and Demond is going to, and again, this was mid-January, so it sounds like these conversations have taken place where he spoke with Mia's parents, and Demond spoke to the women's soccer team, and they've continued to chalk it up as bad timing, but that is also something that I think Demond will have to publicly address with all of this as well.
Does this get forgotten at all by Washington fans the first time Williams goes for 380 yards and 4 total touchdowns in a 21-point win?
The fan base is so big that I don't think there's ever going to be one answer. I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out, but it's the same way I feel about the locker room that I do about the fan base. There are going to be people who, no matter what happens, they are not going to accept him for that. There are going to be people who, you see that and it's, I feel like this guy can get a college football playoff. There's going to be that side of that as well. And I feel like we're going to see that from the locker room, from the fan base, from everybody, because this is just such a complex and unfortunate and frustrating situation from so many different angles.
Is there a sense at all that it's being made a bigger deal of amongst fans and media types than inside the locker room itself?
I feel like that's always going to be a message to try to keep things in-house and try to keep things somewhat under control. But I think that with how this just sent shockwaves throughout the world of college football, because obviously we've seen the whole Darian Mensah thing transpire since then in a very similar situation. This changed college football. It did. And I don't think that anybody would be wrong for blowing this up and making it a big deal, because in so many different ways, until there are stricter regulations handed down about NIL and contracts and whatever else from the NCAA, this is going to be an example that people point to, for better or for worse, for a lot of different cases that we will see in the future.
Do you think this ever feels like a story that was just something we talked about in spring? Can Demond Williams, from a brand standpoint and his reputation amongst the fan base, can he get past this?
I really don't know. I truly don't, because think about it, Spencer. Let's say Washington does make this big miraculous run to the college football playoff. Demond Williams is a Heisman finalist and does all these things that Jedd Fisch has been talking him up to do since his freshman year. That's still going to get asked at a media day or at this, or, oh, hey, you wanted to leave Washington, but you came back and now you're doing this. Talk a little bit about that journey. That's something that probably is not going to go away.
No, I can't see how it will. Maybe we'll have a weekly Demond Williams emotional check-in segment here on Locked On College Football with Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies. Great, as always. Penn State's schedule, I tell you what, we're going to end on a more chipper note on today's show because it's a Friday. You can take some good news into the weekend. Penn State is going to win more games this year than they did last year. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what is on the screen. There are moments that move a team forward, performances, sequences that define a player, a team, a season. Let's talk about a guy I've talked about a lot recently on the show because, well, he's in the news, and that, of course, is one Trinidad Chambliss. So his performance against Georgia in the rematch, I mean, he almost beat Georgia pretty much single-handedly twice this year. Twice. That's no small feat. Georgia lost to Alabama, to Ole Miss, almost to Ole Miss, and that's it. Trinidad Chambliss is that sort of guy, and he reminds us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the field, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit mentality. That's what Mazda is all about. They put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There is more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Have you seen the Penn State football schedule? They're winning more games this year than they did last year in the regular season. I believe that right now. Pre-spring football. You've got a veteran quarterback who's proven himself more than capable of winning football games. You got a head coach who's proven himself, more than capable of winning football games. You've got a top 10 transfer portal class, and it's not just a bunch of guys from Iowa State. I mean, it's mostly those guys. Who was a better football team last year? I know the answer to that question was Iowa State. So, was Penn State in some ways more talented? Sure, in a couple of select spots. Those guys are gone now. Insert Iowa State's roster, and Iowa State is, well, it might be a rough year in Ames for their new head coach. But we're talking about the Nittany Lions here. This schedule, and I'm going to call it out. I always have. I always will until this changes. I commend the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 for playing 10 Power 4 opponents. Everybody should. It should be a mandated requirement for the betterment of the sport, for the betterment of the playoff. It's the best thing for fans to have more quality non-conference games to watch. So, I can hold two thoughts at once. On the one hand, I understand the strategy, and it very much works in Penn State's new look roster's favor to have a joke of a non-conference slate. On the other hand, no, I don't think this should be allowed whatsoever. They open with Marshall. They actually go on the road, not out of the state, and they play Temple, one-time head coaching destination of one Matt Rule, and then they play Buffalo, the Buffalo Bulls, not the Buffalo Bills. That would probably be tougher, though if you just told them it's a playoff game, Penn State would have a chance. So then Big Ten play begins. 9 conference games. That's what everybody should be doing. That's what everybody is doing now. And it begins with Wisconsin, the Mighty Badgers, at home for Penn State, by the way. That's not where the favorability of this schedule ends. Then they go at Northwestern. That's their first real test on the road at Northwestern. Hey, Aiden Childs and Chip Kelly are there. You never know. You never know. Speaking of schedules, I might have to dedicate a segment to Northwestern's schedule. It might be worth it. Might. Their season isn't going to be worth talking about, though. Then the first real test after what should be, not guaranteed to be, should be a 5-0 start. 4 of your 5 are at home. You're going to be favored in those games. You should win. USC comes to town all the way across the country. Not exactly a puddle jump flight as it would be for Ohio State or Michigan. More on those two in a moment. So you play USC, then you go at Michigan. Those are good teams. Good teams, good head coaches. USC was a 9-game winner this past year. Michigan was a 9-game winner this past year. One of them, I believe, will be a double-digit winner. And it might hinge on their outcomes against Penn State. USC's got to go all the way across the country. Michigan gets them in Ann Arbor. So that's certainly the sort of stretch that you view as the test. How ready are they? How prepared does Matt Campbell have Penn State to just ascend back towards the top of the best conference in college football? That'll be your measuring stick. Then you'll have a bye. Everything will settle. Everything will calm down, whether you're riding high, in between, or way below where you want from an expectation standpoint. Everything will chill for a week. Okay, then you get to the easy part. Yeah, the easy part of the schedule wasn't the easy non-conference. No, it was getting to go through a Big Ten play, having played Wisconsin, at Northwestern, USC, and at Michigan. They have not left the Eastern time zone. Is Michigan Central, East? You get one. They haven't made a big trip yet. They play Purdue at home off a bye. Maybe Barry Odom pops. I don't know. Then they go at Washington. That is probably their toughest game on paper after the bye, and it's not particularly close. They end with, wait for it, 2 home games against Minnesota and Rutgers. Minnesota's a sneaky tough game in there. And then they go at Maryland. That's their Big Ten schedule. Wisconsin at Northwestern, USC at Michigan, bye. Purdue at Washington, Minnesota, Rutgers at Maryland. So not only in a 9-game conference slate do they only have 4 road games, 2 of which are, that's right, Northwestern and Maryland. There is no Oregon, there is no Indiana, there is no Ohio State. None of them. Our friends at FanDuel are yet to release a win total for the Penn State Nittany Lions this upcoming year. It's not out yet. Eventually, as things calm down and the spring comes along in earnest, we'll see a total. I'd be stunned if the win total is lower than 7.5. Because if it's 6.5 or below, I'd hammer the over. I would hammer it. And though my in-season bets, admittedly, weren't the sharpest this year, brighter days will be ahead. My over-under bets were 58%. Not bad. Not bad. Pretty good. I'm going to continue to remember that far more than what happened on a week-by-week basis there. Just a bunch of bad beats, really. Should have called Scott Van Pelt. Anyway, this is as soft of an entrance into a new conference for Matt Campbell as you could ask for. Remember what happened to Oklahoma? Remember Florida's schedule the last couple of years? Have you seen what Ohio State has to go through this year? Have you seen Northwestern's schedule? I mean, there are not only harder landings, there are outright brutally tough landings. Juggernaut from X-Men. Once his momentum gets going, he can't be stopped. That's not what this schedule is. After the bye, there is one game that today I would pick Penn State to lose at Washington. They should lose that game. Should. Doesn't mean they will. I'm just saying they should. I can't see fewer than 7 wins. Baseline minimum. Taking the Indiana approach, just cupcake up the non-conference schedule. It's not okay, and the Big Ten needs to change it. They do. Are they going to? Probably not. Indiana just won the national championship playing nobody in the first 3 weeks of the season. It's really easy to forget about. I never will. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.